Okay, hey there. This is Mike Lane with Available Technology, and today we're going over Internet Safety at Work. This is a presentation that was adapted from a Microsoft security presentation, and we've added some information to it to make it a little more relevant to small businesses in the environment that they're in. So the purpose of this presentation is to instruct employers and employees on simple steps that you can do every day to protect your computers and protect your network from hackers. Um, in this day and age, the biggest threat to small businesses is the security and the protection of their data. Not necessarily their computers. Computers these days are expendable, but the data on those computers is what's important and what brings value to your business. So let's take a few minutes to talk about internet safety in the office. First of all, is data security really even a concern? I have people that ask me this all the time. They say, we're not a big company, we're not going to get hacked. Well, the truth of the matter is that these processes no longer require a person to target you. These are automated processes where they go just like through a phone book. They go to each IP address one after the other, after the other, after the other, and look for vulnerabilities. And it doesn't matter if you're an individual sitting at home with a cable modem or if you are a business that has millions of dollars of critical data on your computer that's valuable to hackers, you can still get hacked. So here's some statistics that will kind of inform us as to the situation of data security in the small business environment. There was a test that was done, but in 2015 and 2016 there was a survey, and what they found was that 55% of individuals or of companies knew that they had experienced an attack in that 12-month period. Now, if 55% of them knew, I know for a fact that 100% of them were attempted to be hacked. I mean, they were attacked. I know this because we monitor and maintain firewalls all over our state, and so we have hundreds of them that we monitor. And looking at those logs, you can't go 5 minutes without seeing a hack attempt. So 55% of people were aware that they were hacked, not necessarily that they weren't attacked if they weren't aware, because they certainly were being attacked. Of those 55%, 50% actually had a breach as a result of that hacking attempt. So if you think about that, that tells me two things. The first thing it tells me is that number one, everybody's getting hacked, and hackers are pretty good at what they do. The second thing that it teaches me is that businesses are not prepared to deal with a hack attempt and have not secured their businesses properly. To further explain that, 48% of security breaches, and this is my own experience as well, are direct malicious attacks, meaning that someone created a phishing email and sent it to your business, or attempted to intercept an email and then modify the email and change bank account numbers and that kind of thing, and have funds transmitted to a fraudulent account. 48% of those. 52% of hacks are caused by human error or negligence. These things being someone clicked on an email that they shouldn't have clicked on, or someone had a very weak password, or an employee was supposed to lock a computer and didn't, and someone actually walked in and stole the data off of the computer. So if we can education is a huge part of the process. If we can have employers and employees know about the human errors and negligence that can take place, then we can eliminate 52% of all hacking attempts that occur. The other thing that's interesting to me is that 51% of businesses allocate budget toward securing their network. That means that 49% don't even think about spending any money on better security, better software, better firewalls, or that kind of thing, and that's shocking to me. Also, the impact of a cyber attack: 60% of small businesses go out of business after they have a successful cyber attack. Once your data is stolen, once it's disseminated, your clients no longer trust you. They have fines and fees and lawsuits that they have to deal with as a result of that. So it's always better to prevent these attacks than it is to clean up afterwards. So is data security really a concern for businesses? Absolutely. And it's the number one concern that your business has. So what do we do about it? How can we keep it secure? Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but what we're going to talk about today are the free or low cost options that you can do as an individual that works in a business, or as a business owner that you can implement in your business. Here's the 5 steps that we would follow in general to have better cybersecurity in your network. First of all, you want to make sure that your computer's defenses are strong. Then we want to educate and be aware of scams and fraud. What do those things look like, and how can we avoid them? Thirdly, we want to learn to create strong passwords and not give them out to anyone. The password is almost always the weakest link in the security chain, so we're going to talk about that briefly. Fourth, we want to guard our data and devices when you're mobile. If you have any company data on laptops or phones, tablets, we want to make sure that those things are carefully protected, so when you're mobile, you have less risk of someone stealing that device or intercepting data to and from it. All right, let's talk about each of these very briefly individually. So first of all, we want to make sure that the computer itself has strong defenses. Now, part of PCI compliance is that you would need to have a antivirus and a software firewall on each of the computers. The computers that we maintain and manage definitely have firewalls turned on. Sometimes you're using the Windows firewall that's located in the Windows control panel. Sometimes you're using a product like ESET or Symantec antivirus that has its own separate firewall. But it's important that that stays on and that it's not disabled. Secondly, we want to make sure that you have the antivirus and software firewall installed. We've had clients that assume that their computer started going slow because some new antivirus software went on, so they'll uninstall it. Brilliant, right? No, you want to make sure that stuff is running and that it's updated. The next thing is for your operating itself to stay updated, your operating system to stay updated constantly. If there are new updates, they need to be installed. Now, a few years ago, we would not have agreed with this statement, but because of the breaches and how quickly the attacks are evolving, we always recommend keeping your software updated immediately as soon as new updates come out. Okay, so education for the second unit is to be aware of scams and fraud and know what they look like. So first of all, don't blindly click on an email or a message that comes in, or an communication attempt that comes in. I can't tell you how many times people have told me, I got this email and it looked really funny. There was something not right about it. And it had an attachment with a weird name. So I opened it. Which to me is, okay, if it looks strange, don't open it. If this were a horror movie, everybody would be laughing because, if somebody's in that room and they're in there, you don't go in the room. So think before you click. Examine an email that seems strange or unusual. There are always telltale signs for phishing messages, for spam and hacking attempts. If you look at which typically come through email or web pages, there are telltale signs you can find, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. Anything that's considered sensitive information, don't give it out. If you have a password on your computer or to your bank accounts, for example, don't give that information out to anybody. It's surprising to me how many people share passwords on networks, and you can't expect a password to be kept secure if 10 people know it. So keep that information private, don't give it out. Alright, thinking before you click. So here's a few of the telltale signs for knowing whether or not the website you're on are secure. A lot of people will go to a bank site or click a link in an email that goes to a bank or to some sort of secure site where you're going to be entering sensitive information. And there are a couple of ways for you to know whether that site is the site that it says it is, and whether or not that site is a fake site created to look like the original one. So you will put in the information, they collect it, they then log into the real site, steal your information, steal your money. First of all, you can look for the HTTPS on the website. Websites that allow you to enter secure information are secured using something called SSL. That stands for Secure Sockets Layer. And what that does is it creates an encapsulated or an encrypted environment for you to type that information so it can't be intercepted. Now, once you enter into a secure environment in your web browser, there is a tunnel between you and the person receiving the information so no one else can look at it from the outside. So look for the HTTPS on sensitive sites that you're going to. If you're placing an order, if you're entering passwords of any kind, look up in your browser, make sure that you have the HTTPS option at the top. The second thing in most browsers is that you'll have a little padlock there too. And the padlock tells us that we not only are we on an HTTPS site, but that also that site is secured with a third-party issued certificate that guarantees that this web page is the web page that it says it is. It can't be misrepresented. And then look at other signs to see if that site really is trustworthy. For example, most sites that are fake look very similar, but most of them are written by people whose first language is not English. Look for misspellings. Look for weird grammar that American Express would never use a sentence that sounded like this. It's just not possible. Another thing to look for is if you get an email from a credit card company or a bank and they say to click here and contact them, typically you're going to want to call that organization rather than clicking a link in a message. Most of the time, these secure organizations like banks and credit cards don't want you to click in a browser. They will never ask you to, and they'll certainly never ask you to email a password to anybody. So keep that in mind and look the site over to make sure it's what it's supposed to be. Usually if you can look at the top and see the HTTPS and the lock icon, you'll know that you're in a secure environment. So a few of these things that another big thing that's going around right now is the scareware or the scams where you're on a website and it pops up and says you're infected and you need to click or call this number and we'll help get you uninfected. Alarming messages in a web browser are typically signs of what they call a drive-by infection, where you might be on Google searching for your favorite football team or something like that you use every day, recipes, outdoor equipment, and a web page pops up and all of a sudden you hear a voice or you see a picture on the screen that says you're infected and you need to call this number and we'll uninfect you for a fee. That is always a scam. Microsoft or McAfee or any of these security companies will never, ever, ever tell you to call them so you can get uninfected. Trust me, they don't want to talk to you. If they wanted to call you or talk to you, the only reason they would call is if you owe them money. They're certainly not going to call and say, "Let me help you with this problem." So if you see a pop-up or an alarming message that says, "Hey, you're doing illegal things on your computer, call here so we can fix it." Misspellings, grammatical errors, always a telltale sign. Businesses do not send out misspelled stuff, and typically, if it's a credible business, they're going to have people that proofread. If you see a deal that's too good to be true, guess what? It is too good to be true. So just use a little common sense. And if anybody asks you for sensitive information, like you get an email or a phone call that says, I'm from the bank and we just wanted to verify this is what we show as your password. Is that correct? And then you'll say, no, that's not my password. If they ask you to give them your password, don't do it. Just a little common sense can eliminate a lot of those end user errors that can cause us to have trouble with our data being compromised. All right, moving on. Let me show you if you get an email or a message that looks really official, know what source these communications are coming from and what source these communications won't come from. You're not going to get a subpoena via email. Okay, you're not going to get the FBI sending you a message saying, we've determined that you've downloaded illegal things on your computer and you need to click here and log in order for us to help you. So be aware. Again, it's a little common sense, but this is common. We see these all the time from UPS. We see them from FedEx. We see them from American Express. Every bank that's out there telling you that they need you to click and provide some login information so they can correct your frozen account or something like that. So again, just be aware and think before you click. A few ways that you can avoid being tricked into downloading something that you shouldn't is, again, the common sense is a huge factor. Always make sure that the message is legitimate. If you get an email, probably the most common thing we see these days, especially with ransomware. Ransomware being an infection that locks up your files and requires that you pay something to get your files back. Those are coming in everywhere. We hear about those in the news all the time, and those come in through email. And they're typically a zip file or a PDF document attachment. And it might come from someone you know, but there's going to be things about that message that do not look right. What I always recommend is that you confirm that the message is legitimate. If someone you've talked to them on the phone and they say, "Oh yeah, we're working on this project. I'm going to send you this email with an attachment with a PDF. I need you to read that, sign it, return it." That's great because you are expecting that attachment. If you get something out of the blue from somebody you haven't heard from in a year and it has an attachment, be very, very careful before you click or use that message. If something comes from, we have real estate attorneys that get closing information from people all over the place that they may or may not even know. And if that's the case, you'd want to pick up the phone, call them, and make sure it's legitimate before you open it. You could be saving yourself a lot of headaches. Then, once you have a pop-up, if you get a pop-up on your computer, that pop-up may have some options in there for how you can close that item. For example, a pop-up says, and this is exactly what we see. You're on a website, all of a sudden this pop-up appears. Okay, well, what's your first inclination to do? Well, you're going to click OK, or you're going to click cancel. If you're really smart, you might even click the X at the top right. But any of these things can actually be buttons that could, once you click on them, they could lead you to download or run an executable that could further infect your computer. So these are kind of traps that you would want to avoid. If you see a pop-up like this, the proper way to close it is to press the Control key and then F4. Control F4 will close whatever's in front of you. So if it needs to be closed, you can close it safely with Control F4. That's also a really quick way to close something if you're working on things on your computer. You can easily just Control F4, close everything. You can do Control F4 over and over and over and close everything on your computer very quickly. And so that's a kind of a neat little shortcut to know anyway. So close those pop-up messages carefully. Use Control F4 if you can, because that's the safest way to close anything that looks suspicious. All right, number 3 is passwords, and passwords are a huge problem. We see so many people that use password, password1, their kid's name, and there's certain characteristics of strong passwords. And these are what are considered by the payment card industry to be strong passwords. This is one of the standards, the PCI compliance standards. First of all, don't share passwords with anybody. Your password belongs to you. You should change passwords often. It should be changed, according to PCI, every 60 days. But you change them as often as your business is willing to assume the risk. Some people say, I'm not going to change them every 60 days, but they might change them every 90. Some people will only change them every 6 months, but it's recommended to change them frequently and don't repeat passwords. Thirdly, a strong password should not contain a dictionary word. Anything that's found in the dictionary in combination with numbers and punctuation can be hacked very easily. In our testing, we have tools that can brute force hack a password with a dictionary word and a combination of numbers and punctuation or letters, and can do it under 1 minute. So it is not secure. I would not recommend that you use anything with a dictionary word. They need to be strong, 8 characters and 4 types of characters. So for passwords to have 4 types of characters, those 4 types are uppercase letters, lowercase letters, punctuation, and numbers. And then change them at least every 90 days. If you don't change them any more often than that, please don't let it go past 90. That's really the outer limit for passwords. Creating strong passwords can eliminate most of the hacks that we see as we're out in the field. The strong passwords are a great deterrent to keep you from getting hacked. All right, as a quick exercise, let's look at some of these example passwords and see which ones of these are strong. So let's see, our first one is numbers and punctuation. Our second one is numbers and punctuation. Third one is a word with certain letters replaced with punctuation or numbers. The third is similar, but it's not really a word. It's kind of random. Fifth is all numbers, and then the last one is looks totally randomly generated. So let's see which of these are considered to be secure. Now, if you look at these, the ones that are secure are the ones that don't contain a dictionary word and don't contain a word that has certain characters replaced with punctuation. The algorithms that are out there today can recognize and can hack those things. Like number 3, expeditious. Hackers automatically know to try, if it's an E, try a 3 there. If it's a 1, try an exclamation point. If it's an O, try a 0. So that no longer flies to help make your password secure. So try to make these random. Use a formula. if you can make one up that will help you create a password that you can easily remember, but is hard for others to figure out. All right, mobile is number 4. If you're using phones and you're using tablets or computers, you want to protect those as well as you can. Here's a few ways to do that. First of all, it's easy to overlook a mobile device for its antivirus and its firewall, especially phones. People don't usually think of a phone as needing an antivirus program, but it does. So first of all, does it have the latest software to protect it? Secondly, think of your mobile devices like your wallet or your purse. You're going to keep those with you at all times. You wouldn't throw a wallet or a credit card down in your car in plain sight and then walk into a coffee shop. You would keep that with you and you'd keep it protected because you don't want anything to happen to it. So protect it just as if it were money because that's how valuable your data is. Also, don't hand carry. If you've got anything like credit cards or credit card information or account information that would be useful to hackers or that would be an advantage for them to have to be able to hack or get into your bank accounts, don't carry that stuff around. Keep it in a secure place rather than transport it. If you use a thumb drive and you do transport data, be very careful if you plug it into a computer with which you're not familiar. You don't know if that computer has antivirus on it. You don't know if it has malware. There may be keyloggers that when you access the information on the thumb drive, it could be sending that information from the computer to a hacker. So be very careful and be aware of the environment to which you introduce your sensitive data. Also, wireless hotspots. If you're working with a laptop or a wireless device and you're connecting to wide open hotspots, you have to be aware that other people are connecting to that hotspot, and there are plenty of tools that will sit there and collect information from an insecure wireless hotspot. So first of all, make sure that you're using a secured hotspot that uses a password. If you're working at some place like Starbucks or a restaurant, even if it has a password, I would never do anything that you need to be secure over a public network like that. Even if it's secured with a password, there are other people that you don't know that are log into that network as well. And again, you can have a laptop with tools running that can collect every keystroke that's transmitted across the network. So be very careful. Know who you're connecting to. If you are at a coffee shop and you see more than one network that looks like it could be the coffee shop network, maybe it has their name in it, you want to find out which one is the real one because a lot of people will spoof a network. They'll set up a new Wi-Fi access point that looks like the one of the organization that you're at, but it's not. It's a fake one that's designed to collect your information. So make sure you know who you're connecting to. And then save sensitive uses for more trusted connections. If you're going to buy something online or if you're doing some work that requires you to enter some sensitive stuff, do it at home on your wired network or on your secure network, or do it at the office. Just keep that stuff away from public wireless networks. Okay, so let's review those 5 steps. First of all, we want to make sure the computer is kept strong with antivirus and constant updates. We want to educate ourselves and be aware of scams and fraud and what those things look like and how to avoid them. You want to make sure that your passwords are strong and kept private. And then you want to take care of your mobile devices when you're on the go, just as if they were your wallet or your money. Keep those with you and don't let them out of your sight. And so if something were to happen and you were to get infected, what should you do? If something pops up on your screen at the office, should you close it and pretend it didn't happen? Or should you take steps to make sure that people are aware of a potential situation? So here's what you should do. Here's some signs to know when you do get infection. First of all, your computer might act funny. It might run very slowly. You might have windows that close without your permission. You might have things that open or black screens that come up and then close immediately. It might crash a lot or it might do anything else that's unusual. And basically the best step to take is to tell others around you that this has just happened and then contact the IT department to make sure that they can run the scans they need to on that computer and protect the data. This is especially important with the ransomware because if one person gets infected, that ransomware will go across the network and infect all the other computers on the network. So it's important to stop it at the source where it comes in. Very critical. So what if you do have a breach? Of all the percentage of people that knew they had a breach, what is the proper thing to do when that happens? Well, first of all, you need to follow whatever your corporate IT policy is. Hopefully, your organization has a written acceptable use policy that says, here's what you can do on your computer, here's what you can't do on your computer, here's how we handle access to mobile devices, here's how we handle access from the outside of the network in, and here is what we do if you think a breach has occurred. So first of all, you would follow the corporate IT policy. If they don't have one, here's a few steps. First of all, report it immediately. Or sooner, as soon as you can possibly do it. Tell people what's happened, so you won't find out a day later that all your data has been encrypted and now you have to pay thousands of dollars to get it back. Everybody's passwords should be changed immediately if we think that there's a breach. And if there's a mobile phone that's been stolen or lost, we will want to make sure that we can remotely wipe that data. With our email systems, we can log into we can see every mobile device using each account, and I can remotely wipe them so whoever's hands it's in cannot get your critical data. If we don't host your mail for you over at Available Technology, if you have some other system, you may have something in place to protect that, but there's no guarantee. So you'd want to check with your IT department to find out what to do if you lose or if a device is stolen, like a laptop or a mobile phone. And then finally, just be safe. Use common sense when you're online, and you can minimize the amount of attacks and hacks that are successful that are caused by negligence and by human error. So if you have any questions at all about what we talked about or about a specific threat that you've seen, we would be happy to answer those questions. Go to your manager. You can always email us at info@available-tech.net. Go to the website. We have lots of resources there as well. And thanks very much for your time, and everybody have a great day.